What the heart of the matter is this is somebody else who's in danger, and it's not from somebody that has an obvious weapon. Obviously, hands are could be a deadly weapon, but this is not somebody that has an obvious weapon like a knife or another firearm. So, talk a little bit more about that, Bill. When you're when it's a third party and they're not armed, what can and can't a person do legally?
So, again, depending on what you're afraid of, if you're afraid they're going to be injured, you could use reasonable non-deadly force, pepper spray, taser, stun gun, physical defensive tactics for reasonable force that's not deadly. You're not afraid the person's going to be killed. The courts and the law does allow you to use deadly force if you're afraid that person's going to be killed. The examples I would give for that, somebody hitting someone in the head or, like you said, beating them on the ground, maybe a much larger man beating a woman on the ground, there's a clear disparity of force. If you don't intervene, someone's going to die. Now, the problem with intervening in that third party is you don't know who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. Mm-hmm. But you could reasonably assume nobody deserves to be beaten to death. So you're not being the judge, the jury, and the executioner here. You're just trying to stop a criminal attack that you perceive as a reasonably perceived deadly threat to that individual. It's much easier to articulate if you could say the person's much bigger and stronger. It's an elderly person that's being beaten by a person of good physical strength. It's a man attacking a woman, an adult attacking a child. If you have that clear disparity of force, it's much easier to articulate. But imagine the person's choking someone. They're choking them. Their lips are turning blue. It looks like they're about to go unconscious. You don't know if they're going to kill them or just choke them unconscious. Depending on the circumstances, what you reasonably believe to be happening, you may be able to intervene and stop that or prevent it from continuing. It could open you up to liability if you're wrong. So that's saying, one of the things we often say is kind of keep it to your immediate family, people where you can clearly tell what's going on. There have been examples where somebody intervenes in a situation like that, and they've saved the person, and then they're holding their gun on the other person that they've shot, and the guy that they were saving gets up and stabs them, or gets up and attacks them because it was two brothers that were fighting,
which is not good.
Just recently, we had an example where a CCW person came to the aid of another person, and he drew his gun, told him to stop beating the guy. Was an older guy, and as the guy's running off, the CCW permit holder's tracking him with his gun. The person on the ground says, "Don't shoot him! Don't shoot him! It's my son."
Jeez.
So again, we don't know the circumstances.
So the term you just used, I think, is really important: disparity of force. And I actually just did a real quick Google search, and Massad Ayoob. Who is Massad Ayoob?
Massad Ayoob is one of the most well-known experts on use of deadly force. He teaches instructor courses to law enforcement and civilians.
They still use the Ayoob flashlight technique.
Yeah, which I knew you'd know who he was. I just wanted to tell everybody who he was. So he defines it this way: disparity of force is the element that comes in when a deadly weapon is used in self-defense against the ostensibly unarmed attacker. So just like you described, somebody is obviously, far more capable of hurting somebody else. That's the disparity of force that you're talking about. A much stronger attacker against a weaker, disabled victim. So that's really what you're talking about. Is when you get involved, is there a huge disparity in force? Does that kind of sum it up well?
Yeah, and another way to look at disparity of force would be you're one person and there's three people attacking you, or even two people attacking you, and maybe they're the same size as you, maybe they're even smaller, but there's three of them. And that means 6 hands, 6 legs, a lot of body parts coming at you. If they're trying to beat you, it's a lot harder to defend against multiple attackers.
Or for me, it'd probably have to be like 10 guys, right?
Yeah, definitely.
One small girl. You're toast.
Even on my best day.
On your best day.
Okay, well, cool. Well, I really appreciate that, Bill. And again, Bill Desy is with CCW USA. He's an instructor, teaches CCW courses, and is, as we've seen here today, very much an expert.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill.
Without someone doing something about it, it's not going to get any better.